Hello everyone, welcome back to another video talking geeky stuff. And today's video is about John Wick Chapter 4. My thoughts. Before we start, as usual, spoiler alert. So you have been warned. 3, 2, 1, spoiler alert. Alright then, so as usual, came back 2 hours ago now after watching this. You know, one thing I forgot, I didn't check, I didn't realise it's pretty long. This film's it's definitely the longest one out of the 4 movies. I think it got longer as each chapter. I think this one's like nearly 170 minutes, 169, 170 minutes long. So nearly 3 hours. I'll tell you this though, it didn't seem that long because, my god, this one definitely had the most action. And some of the actions are really creative. I'll definitely get into that a lot more. So starting with Keanu Reeves is one of my favorite, a big fan of his. Back in the Bill and Ted days, I did a video about 18 months ago. I did a video back then was about some of my favorite trilogies, and John Wick was in that selection. I said that it's currently one of my top 10 trilogies. Of course, I knew that the 4th movie would be coming out, so it's now become one of my favorite series. I'm not sure they're going to continue the 5th one. I mean, I would love to see more, of course, but I think in a way it kind of ended in the right way. So let's start off. You see John Wick or Fist punching this kind of like traditional Japanese karate training, like a wooden plank with little ropes around it, and it's got blood, and you can see a fist punching every time it punches. The background music adds that kind of more boom, boom, and then you see Lawrence Fishburne comes in and gives him a new suit. Are you ready? And then the action starts. Really Western. It starts off just like in a trailer. And speaking of trailer, I forgot to play the trailer while I talk. I can't believe I missed that. So it starts off in somewhere seems like in the Middle East, chasing a bunch of what seems like Arabic people in the desert, and he's shooting them. Of course, he goes and kills them all. Goes and kills like the head leader, just to kind of stop this whole massacre thing going on. Anyway, so I won't go into too much detail about the story because if you are a John Wick fan, you know this is not about story. The story is pretty straightforward, really. It starts off like in part 1, his wife died through cancer and they killed his puppy, which linked to his last memory of his wife, which started a killing spree. And yeah, then from the second one onwards, it added more, pardon me, more depth to it, a bigger universe, a bigger world, and it wasn't just about a revenge movie. It's more about, I don't know, almost like, how some people think the conspiracy of the Illuminati is. It's kind of like that, run by the royalty in Europe. The high table is like the Illuminatis, and they have these rules. And how each movie got bigger and bigger and bigger. There's one inclusion in this film that I really was looking forward to was Donnie Yen. I'm glad to say, because I was actually pretty nervous when I heard Donnie Yen was in it, because Hollywood hasn't really made or done any, used a lot of these Hong Kong actors, Chinese actors, say Chow Yun-fat, Chow Yun-fat, Jet Li, Jackie Chan. They haven't really made good use of them. Don't get me wrong, they made a couple of good movies and so on. It's just that they didn't really make good use of them. For example, I think the worst one was probably Chow Yun-fat. He did a couple of good ones, and then if you take, for example, I remember hearing he was in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean, and it was a waste of time. So I'm just glad they made good use of Donnie Yen. I like his character. They made him strong and powerful. He's like one of the kind of toughest persons here, because this is Donnie Yen we're talking about. And the action is brilliant, by the way. I mentioned they talk about some of the gunplay was very, very creative. One of my favorite ones was kind of almost like leading up to the end, where he has to get to the church to do a duel with Bill Skarsgård. He played It, the clown in It. speaking about, he's like the Marquess of Paris, like the head honcho, and he has all the power and all the unlimited resources from the High Table to take down John Wick and anything or anybody who's associated with him. And it starts, kind of go back a bit again. It kind of starts off with Ian McShane's character, Winston, and how he got involved and how he's always protecting John Wick, and he pays a price, and his concierge, Lawrence Riddick, gets killed for that. And rest in peace. He's actually, he died in real life as well. So rest in peace for him. And how they kill him to make a point, and then they kind of demolish his whole hotel in New York. That kind of triggers up a series of action and revenge. So back to Bill Saar's character. He's like the head, the main bad guy, and he's trying to take down John Wick. I think he wants a leg up in the High Table or take over that or something like that. And then of course the law was added. You can actually do the good old-fashioned, hundreds of years ago in ancient Europe, where two men have to set off and do a duel, with classic guns and 30 paces and so on. And the terms are, you either free or you take everything. So that's a good bit. And some of the two best action sequences I really enjoyed was kind of like Bill Sarsgaard's character. He puts a hit. He kind of raised it from 20 million, 25 million, then to $40 million to stop John Wick get to the church. Do the deadlines at 6:02 in the morning for sunrise. So that's all points to all hit all over everywhere in Paris. And it's a series of kind of action scenes. And it starts off where they go to Arc de Triomphe and they're fighting around a big roundabout, and it's like the cars are driving. That was a pretty cool scene. And then it takes it to another level where they go into like this kind of abandoned warehouse or something like that, or abandoned mansion, and you see the cameras from a top-down view, and you can see the action going through like different rooms and so on, and that was brilliant. And one of my favorite things about John Wick is the detail. I mean, the director and so on, they are action detail people, because one of my bugs back in action films is, I just say, like the John Rambo's or the Arnold Schwarzenegger Die Hard film, or whatever action film in the 90s, 80s, or whatever it was. It's like you only had one handgun or one weapon. You shoot all these bad guys. You don't even pick up the weapons. And then at the end of the movie, you're wondering why you run out of ammo or run out of bullets. You didn't pick up the weapons the enemies dropped. That's what I love about John Wick films. The details is like, because John Wick himself has his own handgun, his own weapon. I can't remember what it was, but it looks pretty sick, that weapon. 22 rounds and so on. But he picks up weapons. He puts his main weapon back, and uses the enemy weapons. Picks up handguns, shotguns, machine guns, swords, knives, nunchucks, for example. That was pretty cool. So the last kind of action scene build up to the last bit was brilliant. Also, the first action scene was pretty good. Was in the hotel Continental Hotel in Osaka. That was pretty good when he introduced, Donnie Yen comes in. He's been hired to take down John Wick because he's supposed to be retired, and he's got a daughter who's like teenagers playing the violin in the park, and they kind of threatened him to take John Wick out, because if we take out your daughter. So he had no choice but to kind of hunt for John Wick. So I was talking about Donnie Yen. I'm glad that Keanu Reeves showed him a lot of respect. Also, the Asian character is a Japanese guy. What's his name? Hidori. I can't pronounce his name. Well, the manager from the Osaka Continental. You see him around. He's in like The Last Samurai, Bullet Train. Pretty cool actor. The only downside of this was I felt that it was a little bit too long. I think when you see Donnie Yen in action, he gets his fair share of action. You can clearly see Donnie Yen's actions at a different pace. Maybe the reason why they didn't give Donnie Yen too much action was he may kind of steal the show, because whenever you see him do like hand-to-hand combat, sword play, he's just so smooth. I mean, Donnie Yen's been kind of born to do these kind of things. Anybody familiar with his work would know how smooth he is, how fast he is, and his style is so stylistic as well. I suppose in a way that John Wick is the main star, so they couldn't really overshadow him. So whenever Donnie Yen was in the action scene, it was so slick as well. So I would love to see Donnie Yen do more because he's a blind kind of swordsman, a classic blind swordsman. He carries a cane with a sword in it. He uses that and a handgun, which is so cool. But I would love to have seen Donnie Yen use more hand-to-hand combat a bit more. So that's one of my criticisms, but I understand as well because they didn't want Donnie Yen to kind of overshadow because he's just the best at the moment. Second is I mentioned that it was a little bit too long. And there's a bit where, in order for John Wick to get a duel, one-on-one duel, he had to be part of a family. So he goes back to his kind of foster home, at a Russian family in this church. And in order to get back into the family, one of currently the head, the female, asked him to kill Scott Adkins' character, Killia, who you can see the prosthetics. Scott Adkins is a pretty slim, fit guy who does a lot of martial arts as well, but I put like a bodysuit on to make him look bigger than he is. And I think he goes there to the club, and then there's like a drawn out poker game, and then a big action scene happens. I think that could have been shortened down a lot because I don't know. I just felt that it was just there for the action again, And also, what's quite annoying was typical John Wick. There's always a bit that someone's running away from John Wick in a big club, and like techno music was playing in the background. And what I found was my eyebrow raised was John Wick was killing people and fighting people, and people were still dancing. And then he gets thrown over this waterfall thing in a thing, have a big fight, and there's people attacking him with axes. He's killing them with axes, throwing axes at people's heads. And the people in the dancing, when he was like her, they're still dancing. I thought that was a bit off. And then speaking about that, and of course, Scott Adkins is a real martial artist as well, so he puts a pretty good fight in that kind of like a bodysuit. And then finally, when the action was over, then people, the people start to realize what's going on. Then they kind of quickly left the club. I thought that was a bit odd. I thought that first, I felt that whole action, the whole scene could have been kind of reduced a bit. And I found it annoying that, people was getting shot, axed, knifed, and whatever. And no one was leaving the club until kind of the action's over, which was quite weird. So I felt that bit could have definitely been shortened down. And then also you had another character who's, I don't know who the actor is. I think I need to look it up. He plays a character called Nobody, who has a Alsatian dog. At first, I thought maybe it was related to Halle Berry's character from the last movie, but you don't really find out. He's just there. I don't know what his motive was. It's like, don't know what side he was on. First, he was like trying to help John Wick, maybe trying to raise the price up every time he escapes. The bounty goes up. Then he goes and hunts him down. He's in negotiation with Bill Skarsgård, get $25 million, and he goes up to 40, and then he sides with John Wick, because John Wick saves his dog near the end. So I'm not sure of that character, why he was there in the first place. I just felt that was, it's like, I suppose you could have written him off, or if that character didn't exist. I don't think it would have made any difference to the movie. So there was a few things they could have cut down on, would have reduced it by maybe 30 minutes. I think 30 minutes was too long, but as in saying that, even though nearly 170 minutes, it still didn't feel that way, because when the film was over, I was like, wow, was it? I was expecting more. But apart from that bit with Scott Adkins in Berlin, I still think some of the action scenes are brilliant. The Donnie Yen duel with the Osaka manager, that was a brilliant fight. There's also one other thing I found annoying is a lot of American films do this. Is, for example, the hotel manager in Osaka. He's speaking English to foreign guests, I understand. But when he's talking to his daughter, he was speaking English as well. And I really don't get that, because realistically speaking, your English is okay. You should be speaking your native language in your native country by default. So I felt things like that. I don't know, maybe it's just me being Asian. I find it kind of annoying as well. where I understand you speak English to your international guests, but when you speak, you and your daughter and your henchmen, you should be speaking in Japanese by default. Some little annoyance like that. Maybe, like I said, just find it. Maybe it's because of my Asian background. I find that a bit weird. You should be speaking your native tongue with your daughter. But then the duel with Donnie Yen, that was pretty good. It's also pretty heartbreaking because they were kind of friends. And I like the ending. Nice. I kind of guessed the ending. And also, I'm just glad that they gave Donnie Yen a good screen time, gave him a good character, some cool action scenes. I would love have to see more of his action. But I understand why as well. He might have kind of stolen the show with how slick he was. Could have ended, like I said, about 30 minutes too long. But overall, still a great movie. Probably, at the moment, my favorite movie. Not my favorite John Wick. I would say it's on a par with 1. I still think 2 and 3 are my favorite. But at the same time, though, some of the action scenes are really cool and the creativity is brilliant. I'm not sure we see a John Wick 5 because, spoiler alert, I'm going to warn you, he dies. I actually thought that was a wrong choice because I think in a way it's kind of double-edged sword. I think it's almost like he sacrificed himself because he didn't want to burden Winston because his concierge died because of him as well. Also, the Japanese hotel manager died because of him. All these people died because of maybe he started to grow a conscience or something like that. But also, if he carries on, Donnie Yen's daughter would have been killed by the high table as well. So maybe it's more like a sacrifice, and he's probably sick and tired of running and killing because I don't think he will ever kill everyone. And at the same time, though, I felt that was almost like a cop-out as well because he spent the last 4 movies running away trying to find his freedom, and he even says it in every movie, I kill them all, I will make sure I kill them all to get my freedom or whatever. It feels like a bit of a cop-out at the same time because I would love to have seen the high table, who was around the table, who's the boss, who's number 1, who's number 2, who's number 3. But I think that as the movie got bigger with every installment, they kind of wrote themselves into such a world that was so big they didn't know how to end it. Because if you take out all the high table, there's going to be people's going to replace them, and then it will kind of continue. It's almost like an never-ending story, right? So in a way, I can understand why they killed Keanu Reeves to end the story because they probably couldn't write even further because the world got so big. But as in saying that, I did like this. A couple of things that could have, like I said, shown it down. One of the characters, nobody was kind of felt like just shoehorned in for whatever reason. I'll give this an 8 out of 10. Best movie this year so far. Love Keanu Reeves. Shame. Would love to have seen the 5th movie, but I can understand why they stopped it this one. Well, anyway, I'd like to say thank you everyone for watching, staying to the end, and please let me know what you thought about this film. Until next time, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are in the world, and please stay safe. Goodbye.